Can we go ahead and do a roll call, please?
Dan Foyle,
Present.
Ken Sanderson,
Present.
Kelly Rast,
Present.
Fred Wingert,
Here.
Rod Richardson,
Present.
Ken Klingensmith.
Present. Would you mind reading the statement of the hybrid in-person virtual meeting for us, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
This meeting is now being recorded in the boarding room with the zoning board members attending in person. There is an option for virtual attendance on Zoom webinar. For Zoom participants wishing to speak, please use the raise hand function in the Zoom app at the start of the agenda item on which you desire to comment. Comments will be received from in-person attendees first, followed by Zoom participants. When it is your turn to speak, the moderator will recognize you by name or phone number used to join the Zoom webinar, and your microphone will be unmuted. Please state your name and address, please state your name and city and state where you reside for the record, followed by your comments. All public speakers will be limited to 3 minutes unless the chair designates a different time period. If you have trouble with Zoom, please call 913-715-9666. Board members, staff, and presenters, please state your name every time you begin talking, and please speak into the microphone so that people attending via Zoom can hear you, and the comments can be transcribed for the record. This is a public meeting. We are presenting live and recording the meeting.
Thank you. Appreciate that. We'll go ahead and review the agenda items. Is there anything to add, delete, or revise on the agenda that you have in front of you for May 1st? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and is there any disclosure of conflicts or interest?
None.
Any disclosure of external contacts or discussions?
None.
All right, having none, we'll go ahead and get our board reports, please. Sean?
Good evening. Thank you, Chairman. The Board of County Commissioners actions. The last meeting with the zoning board, if you recall, that was March 6th. And the Board of County Commissioners considered all the applications on that agenda on April 4th. Those applications included a rezoning to the RN2 district for a property at 16165 Kenneth Road, final plat for Blue Valley Reserves at 201st and Mission Road, and a conditional use permit for landscape contractor at 18770 Ridgeview Road. All of those applications were approved as stipulated by the board. And that concludes the Board of County Commissioners actions.
Great, thank you. Before we continue on with the Planning Commission actions, I had a comment that I'd like to record into the record related to actions on a application that was heard on March 7th in regards to the soccer complex on Metcalf. I feel that on March 7th, the Johnson County Commissioner, specifically Henslick, who I felt advocated for the applicant over the residents based on nearly every comment she made, Allebrand and Chairman Kelly ignored the work of the East Zoning Board and its work to represent the community of Stillwell and Southeast Johnson County. The Stillwell Community Plan, as read in the record, was to establish lighting guidelines. The community followed through and did just that. While they were not formally adopted into the Rural Comprehensive Plan, the Stillwell Community Plan was adopted as Appendix E, Section E, and the plan references the creation of lighting guidelines, and those should be recognized and not discarded as only guidelines and ignored by staff and the commission. Thank you, Commissioner Ashcraft and O'Hara, for forcing the conversation and having no lights at all on this project. Michelle was accurate in her response to Commissioner Ashcraft, representing that the lighting guidelines established to reduce lighting were established to reduce lighting in the community, and the reason for the work of the Township Board to seek further protections looking to Dark Sky International as a mechanism within the community to do that. 70-foot light poles on any project without restrictions and still isn't appropriate. The board recognized development will occur. This board recognized that development will occur and sought out what we felt was appropriate with a 5-year term, limited operations, and certification to ensure the guidelines of lighting in Stillwell created under the Stillwell Community Plan were achieved. The commissioners voted to ignore and set aside the interest of the Stillwell community in favor of the applicant. I recognize the trained and educated and professional staff that keep getting referenced by the commission, and this board too recognizes their work. As they stated themselves, the work they do is with the applicants only and not the community. They do not get input from the community, engage only with the applicants. The work of this zoning board is to ensure that the community voices are heard, the neighbors have input, and to have recommendations of the board blatantly ignored, I find inappropriate by our county commissioners, and it demonstrates a lack of interest in the residents in Southeast Johnson County. I just felt I needed to say that. I did not I did not feel that meeting went appropriately, and I didn't know before we continue if any other board members had comments they would like to share.
Well, Mr. Chairman, this is Rod Richardson. I am uncertain at this point as to what weight the Stillwell Community Plan has. Clearly, it was adopted, and clearly the staff has acknowledged that it was adopted. It's in place. It's as valid as the other general county comprehensive plan. And so the question for me is that clearly it's not a statute or a rule, but it is one of the things that the Board of County Commissioners or any zoning body is supposed to consider when they're making their decision, along with the comments of the community and along with recommendations of our professional staff. And I have utmost confidence in the professional staff, by the way. And I think I said this before. I've worked with Sean. I've worked with everybody for 40 plus years on these staff, particularly Johnson County staff is excellent. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that I agree with the conclusions that they draw in some cases. And this soccer complex was certainly one of them. What I think we need to do here, or I would certainly like the staff to consider, and I would be helpful to me. So these comments are for me alone and not on behalf or representing that these are what this board would want to do, but it would be very helpful since we have the Stillwell Community Plan to either A, be advised that it really, you can put it, and I'll just cut to the chase, that it really doesn't mean that much. And it's not anything that's going to carry any weight in the considerations of the Board of County Commissioners or the staff, or that it does have weight, that it will be considered. And if that's the case, then I think any time that there is a divergence from the Stillwell Community Plan or the county comprehensive plan, that the staff should in its report call out exactly where that divergence is. In this case, the Stillwell Community Plan in two respects says, and I quote from page 35 under goals item A, quote, encourage new development, particularly non-residential structures and uses, to be appropriately scaled and designed to be compatible with and embrace the community's character, end quote. The second is part B, quote, establish guidelines to restrict excessive lighting, particularly on new non-residential development, undertake voluntary efforts to encourage businesses and residents to limit their outdoor lighting to be sufficient for safety and promote the use of new lighting technologies to reduce glare, for example, LED when and if this lighting option becomes available. I think the two concerns that this board had were that obviously it was the view of a significant number of adjoining landowners that the lighting, even though they used LEDs, was going to be excessive. And it clearly, in their view, and frankly, in the view of this board, was not consistent or compatible with the character of the area. It's a conditional use permit, essentially shoehorned in next to a residential area. And clearly, 70-foot light standards violated, if I recall correctly, the 15-foot height limit. So this board attempted to carve out a way that this could go forward. And I believe, if I remember correctly, we had a recommendation that was unanimous as to how we thought this should go forward after taking all things into consideration, including the staff recommendations, the citizens, the applicant, and everything else that we thought would work that would entail the compliance with the dark sky requirements, which I think they were pretty close to anyway. But yet, in listening to the Board of County Commissioners, if I'm wrong, but my impression was that they really decided that they wanted to have the soccer complex there for the benefit of the community at large, which is fine. Soccer is great. I support soccer. A lot of people do. But it kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater, because when that was shoehorned into this location, we essentially have a use in an area that is, it's not consistent with any use in the area, period. And although I understand that a CUP for an athletic facility is authorized in this area or any area, quite frankly, it could have been could have been approved in a residential area according to the code if the commissioners wanted it there. So my concern and the message I would personally send to the BOCC is, well, how much weight do you want us to put on these plans? And secondarily, because I would admit, and going back and looking at these, I was a member of the focus group on this plan, and lighting was a big deal back then. And I just, I understand the community wants the soccer complex, but my concern is that if you have a very popular use, and I would point out the baseball fields and some of these other things tend to get approved without too much consideration of all these other factors if it appears that they're widely desired by members of the community that don't live in a particular area. Well, if that's the way it's going to be, that's fine, but we need to know that because we spend an awful lot of time trying to carve out ways that this applicant could get consistent with our plan, could work with the community, particularly this part about encouraging businesses and residents to limit their outdoor lighting to sufficient safety and promote the use and view. Well, none of that was considered weighty by the Board of County Commissioners in their approval of this. And, I take particular exception to that. Now, we're just an advisory board, so the BOCC can do whatever it wants, but the law of the state of Kansas makes it clear that any decision is supposed to consider at least what we recommend, what the staff recommends, what the adjoining residents recommend, what the applicant wants to do, the existing law, et cetera. But where conditional uses are concerned, I am concerned that since they are not uses which are approved as a matter of right at that location, we get into a situation where if it's a publicly popular use, it's going to get shoehorned in there pretty much come hell or high water. And I don't think that is at all what is consistent with the laws and principles of zoning in the state of Kansas. So if the staff and the BOCC would consider it, I would certainly think going forward that where there is a divergence from the comprehensive plan, and I mean calling it out, for example, these two provisions I quoted, and then explain why the staff believes that that there are compelling reasons why we should look the other way on that. And there may be compelling reasons, but I think we need to hear a significantly greater argument on that. And I think when the staff makes the report to the BOCC, they need to know that it's not consistent with the comprehensive plan. But if you believe it, if your report is, we think there are compelling reasons to approve it, I think the BOCC needs to understand what those compelling reasons were and what our view was of that. Otherwise, on conditional use permits in particular, I think we could get very quickly into the area of where CUPs are concerned. The planning has become simply a suggestion and rather than an actual plan. So to me, that was a major, that 70-foot light standard and basically ignoring what we suggested as alternatives and making no effort to even see if they could comply with the dark sky. That was the applicant's right to decide that. But it's very discouraging when that was a hallmark of the Stillwell plan, was controlling lighting. And now when an applicant comes before us with what might be a questionable lighting issue and we say, no, you need to modify your lights, they're going to point up in the sky at these 70-foot light standards and say, really? Obviously, you're discriminating against me now because you sure as heck approved it for them. And the standard of your comprehensive plan would have suggested you shouldn't. Why them, not us? That's the kind of thing we're looking at. And everything has lights. And if lighting is going to be a standard that we're concerned about for the Stillwell community, then we need to know, whether we're wasting our time trying to carve out ways to make that work or not. That's my view. And I'm not disparaging anything about you and the staff or anything else. I'm just saying that's the way I look at it. And it's no different now than when I was on this board before. Was we have these plans and then we have exceptions. And then the question is the exception compelling enough to justify approving the conditional use permit? In this case, obviously, we all didn't think that was the case. BOCC did. I just didn't hear anything in the discussion at the BOCC level about why. That's what is concerning. It was more, well, we have professional staff, we'll listen to them. The applicant's good. We like soccer. That's kind of no way to run a railroad on these things from a purely legal point of view. I mean, it is a quasi judicial process. And I think the BOCC dropped the ball on this one, big time. They might have reached the same result, but they didn't put anything on the record to justify their decision. That's my comment, Mr. Chairman.
I couldn't complete more, and you said it much more eloquently. Any other
This-
quick comments?
Yep, this is Kelly Rast. I'll keep it, Rod did a great job, so did Ken. I echo those sentiments exactly. I've had, and I've already expressed this with Sean and Jay and the staff, the way that sometimes things are presented in front of the BOCC and the way things have gone recently, the BOCC has made it clear that in some cases we are completely irrelevant, which also means residents are completely irrelevant. And it really frustrates me when one of the first sentences that you see in the comprehensive plan and the mission is about the quality of life of residents, because that gets thrown out all the time over, well, we like soccer. Well, that's great. So again, like Rod is saying, there's no rhyme or reason. And I've been on this board for 2+ years now, and every applicant that's come before us in Stillwell, they have had to do lighting to fit what the Stillwell lighting plan is. So I don't even see how this goes forward consistent, with consistency. It is going to be a discrimination thing. This has opened a door up to where there's no rhyme or reason for anything. You're also talking building height. You're also talking hours of operation. It has blown the door wide open. And I just don't understand how we move forward with any kind of consistency. And I don't think that's fair for any resident. I don't think, whether they're moving in, how are they supposed to know what they can account for that's going to go in on a land next to them? And we do have these guidelines, but it's very willy-nilly. It seems like people pick and choose which one or how forcefully they're going to really state them. So this has been an ongoing problem, even when I saw with some of the things that went down with the Planning Commission. So the inconsistency and the lack of respect for, residents' quality of life when they come in here and their voice not being heard. And I do believe staff does a great job, but I have had a problem with how staff tends to agree with BOCC comments, even though that's not 100% representative of what took place at these zoning boards, and it's pretty one-sided. And I do understand BOCC gets the minutes and everything, but I feel like if a question is asked, both sides of the coin need to be represented when the staff answers the question, not just representing one side or the applicant's favor. And that's been I've voiced that multiple times. So the inconsistency and the lack of respect, and I think the BOCC has basically shown that, at certain times, we are basically irrelevant. This board is. So that's all I'll add to that.
Any other comments before we continue?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this is Jay Leipzig. Can I just make a couple of statements here, a couple thoughts? And I appreciate the work of this board, and you all, certainly scrutinize all of these applications, review them in detail, and look at things very carefully and closely. And I appreciate that. I appreciate the time that you're doing that. Also, please know that as you just stated, these meetings are recorded. There's a record of these minutes. So all of these comments will be certainly forwarded to the Board of County Commissioners as well. So that being said, they will certainly understand that and receive a copy of the full transcript of this meeting. I did want to also point out what I would like to do is also visit with the Planning Commission in more detail about the Stillwell Community Plan and see if certain areas of that plan can be reinforced, or I think it's revisited. It was approved in 2013. So I think it is due that we would spend some time looking at the Stillwell Community Plan. Also, as we mentioned before the Planning Commission, we are getting ready to embark on a update to our subdivision regulations. And part of that is also, conformance and stipulations for conditional use permits and how they are approved, the process of stipulations and that type of thing. So that piece of it or that process is already, we're beginning that process to start that. But I do think it would make sense to bring this back for the planning commission and talk about it in more detail and get their additional thoughts as well, because I think there's some things we could do in terms of strengthening that plan as well, that I would like to visit with the planning commission further.
Kelly Ross, I think it's a great idea, but I almost feel like it's a little too late, because how would you, any other applicant that comes in with an application, I mean, unless they want lights 70 feet or higher, or a building that's higher, or hours that are higher, which is almost impossible for all three of those, you can't not say no to that application on any of those criteria. Or like Rod says, it's you're discriminating against them, which again is why, where did the BOCC feel that these criterias were justified to pass? They never laid that out. So now we are kind of dead in the water.
Jay, thank you for your comments. Thank you, Kelly. Any other comments before we continue on with the planning commission actions? Hearing none, Sean, will you?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Sean Penley, planning staff. So just for planning commission actions, there was a meeting on April 23rd, and the only item on that agenda was the annual comprehensive plan review. The planning commission did discuss that, did recommend approval that the plan is still consistent, and that this is something that we do as an annual review. And as Jay mentioned, one thing that is worth noting, we do look at the comprehensive plan annually, and there are certain aspects, including the Stillwell Community Plan, that we look at. We have not revisited that since it was adopted, but we have had other updates. As you may be aware, the west or the northwest area, the former Sunflower area, that was updated. Also, the airport compatibility plans for both New Century Air Center and Executive Airport. So there were updates, but there are going to be additional updates in the future, and we will have to revisit all of those, including the Stillwell Community Plan. The question is when, but even more urgently is updating our zoning regulations. And so that's a really good point. This question that is very common about lighting is certainly something that does need to be addressed. And as you may be aware, there are other issues too, with land use, signage, many other issues. That is a top priority right now. So staff is working on that, and actually we will be selecting a consultant soon, and the planning commission will begin discussion this year on that issue. It'll take some time to get adopted, but it is something that we recognize is important. And so it'll all be tied in together with our regulations and with future updates to the comprehensive plan.
Thanks, Sean.
Okay.
Before we get to the business before the board, I want to see if there's any changes and seek a motion to approve the minutes from the March 6th minutes of the zoning board that were in your packet.
Move to approve.
Kelly Ross, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing no one opposed, the minutes have passed. We've got 3 applicants before the board this evening. We'll go ahead and hear them in the order presented in the agenda. First application is number E24376 FPAU. It's the final plat for 20251 Grandview Street. And Sean, I understand you're going to be presenting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Sean Penley, County Planning Staff. I will be presenting this application for Zoe Brown, our planner, who is unfortunately not able to be here tonight. She's actually a graduate student at Kansas University finishing her master's degree in planning. We're looking forward to having her join us soon. So this application is a request for a final plat for Adams Farm Estates, Lot 11. This is a replat of Lot 11 within the subject development. The property is located south of 199th Street and west of Antioch Road. This is within the Adams Farm Estates development. If you recall, we have had 2 applications on this property. The original plat for the property was approved in 2021, and a replat was approved in 2022. This is an aerial view of the subject property. The property is located at the far south end of the current plat for this phase 1. This was the original phase 1 plat for the development. The subject property is located at the south end of Grandview Street, at the end of an existing street that is currently is a temporary turnaround, future connectivity allowed to the south, but the property is identified here in the blue outline at the far south end of the development. So this is the original plat for the property. So it was originally two lots. It was lot 11 and lot 12 as part of the original plat. In 2021, the applicant requested a replat to combine the lots. That required a replat, and that was approved. Since that time, the applicant is requesting to replat back to the original two lots, so essentially going back to the way the plat was originally approved. And so this slide here does show the previous replat from 2021 that consolidated the two lots. And then on the right, the slide is the proposed replat back to the original two lots. These lots do meet all of the requirements for the RN2 zoning district, and there's no other request for dedication of right-of-way or changes to existing easements. And so this final plat is consistent with the approved preliminary plat and all of the zoning and subdivision regulations. So staff does recommend approval of the revised final plat for Adams Farm Estates, second plat, based on the reasons and subject to the stipulations outlined in the staff report. We do have a recommended motion as well, and staff is available for any questions.
Thank you, Sean. And Klingensmith, are the two, it might just be the drawing or the image, but the combined lots are being split back to two equal size lots as the original plat, where the drawing on page 2 looks like the bottom one's larger than the other one. If you go back to where the blue circle, yeah, see how that looks like it's larger than?
Yeah, that's the current, the way it has been consolidated. So the replat was approved. So they were combined. The two lots were combined to one. That's the way it is currently.
Okay.
They want to go back to the original lots 11 and 12 is what they want.
Thank you for the clarification. Any other questions of staff?
Mr. Chairman, Rod Richardson, Sean, these are all on septics, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
There is no sewer in this area. However, they do have water service. Yes.
And the minimum, this meets the minimum standard, I presume, for a lot using septics, right?
That is correct. They're all required to get a permit through the environmental division for septic service.
Okay. That's the only question I had.
All right, any other questions? Thank you, Sean. Is the applicant with us and wanted to say any comments? All right, acknowledging that the applicant is present for the meeting but has no additional comments. Any questions of the applicant?
This is Rod Richardson. I'd only observed that I live west of here on south of 199th Street, and they're building some beautiful homes there. So it's a very nice looking subdivision, and looks like it'll be a real nice addition to the community. So I have no objection to this.
Thanks. Any public comments? Anyone on Zoom for public comments on this matter? All right, hearing no public comments, we'll go ahead and close the public comment session of the meeting. Any further questions of the staff or applicant? If not, do we hear a motion?
That's Kelly Rast. I move to apply application number E24-376-FP for a final plat for Adams Farms Estate, second plat, a replat of lot 11 for the reasons set forth in the staff report.
And Sanderson, I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing no opposed, it unanimously passes. This will be heard at which Board of County Commissioners meeting?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. This application will be considered for final action by the Board of County Commissioners on May 30th at 9:30 a.m. Here in the Administration Building, 111 South Cherry Street, Olathe. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, next on the business for the board is application E24377 FPAU. It's a final development plan of 20059 Metcalf Avenue. And Michelle? Thank you.
Good evening, Michelle Leiniger, County Planning staff. This is an application for a final development plan for what this board had previously saw a couple of years ago, which was a CUP for Hoag Concrete. The subject property is outlined in blue on your screen. It's south and east of 199th Street and Metcalf Avenue. here is the zoning of the area. So you can see the whole face of Metcalf on the east side is zoned PRB2, which is a commercial retail district. To the east is zoned for residential, and then across Metcalf is zoned for rural. The property is zoned, again, planned retail business district. And then, as I stated, this was planned for Hoag Concrete's office and outdoor storage. This is the existing site today. The CUP for the office and storage was approved in 2000, 22. As you can see, the building is mostly complete and minimal site work has been completed. The owner has sold the property to the applicant, and he is looking to abandon the CUP for the contractor office and storage, utilize the building for an indoor private softball training facility for a single team. All activities will occur indoors. And based on the applicant's narrative, which is included with your staff report, the proposal meets the teaching or instruction use, which is permitted in the PRB district. Here's the new development plan, which is pretty much the same as the approved CUP plan. The outdoor storage area will be now identified for parking spaces and circulation around the building, and screening for the property to the east will need to be included. The applicant has requested a waiver for the deferral of a portion of the required parking. This is the area that's outlined in red, and it's based on the tenant or user characteristics. Based on the proposed use, 24 parking stalls are required. The applicant proposes striping 17 stalls, which will adequately serve the business. Plan shows an additional 7 parking spaces, which can be striped as needed in the future, and staff is supportive of this waiver. Staff does recommend approval of the proposed final development plan with the stipulations outlined in the staff report. I will note that staff does recommend removing stipulation number 9, which references the need of a easement for the stormwater facilities. That has been completed. So that is no longer necessary. Do have a suggested motion here if you do see fit. The applicant is here if you have any questions, and I can also address any questions.
Thank you, Michelle. Any questions of staff by the board? All right, hearing none at this time, thank you. Can we hear from the applicant, please? All right, applicant is present, doesn't have anything additional to add here to answer questions. Do we have any questions of the applicant?
Rod Richardson, just since we've been talking about lighting, what are you going to be doing with lighting, exterior lighting?
Thank you. There's some building,
Can you state your name and address, please?
excuse me, Judd Clausen with Phelps Engineering, 1270 North Winchester, Olathe, Kansas. There's some building mounting lighting that are LEDs that face downward lighting, full cutoff. There's actually no exterior pole mounted fixtures on this. And my client intends to build that lighting consistent with what was originally approved when it was the Hoag building.
Great, thank you.
Is there any, Fred Wingert, is there anything you've been asked to do that you would consider excessive that you'd prefer not do, or the applicant prefer not do?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Is there anything you've been asked to do of the requirements by the county that you consider excessive that the applicant would prefer not do as part of the application?
Yeah, nothing that comes to mind.
Okay.
Ken Klingensmith, is the striping that you're doing of that compacted hard surface gravel? Or is that going to actually be paved on that?
Actually, in that striped area on the north side of the building, that was originally gravel on the Hoag plan, but it'll be paved on this plan. The gravel pavement line is now at that vertical line at the back of the building there.
So that's what stipulation 6 is on the gravel surface shall be compacted hard surface for fire circulation around the building. Is that what that's? Okay, thank you. Michelle said yes. Any other questions of the applicant?
I have one. That area on your legend, is that it says H there, Judd? Is that grass over there on that side of the thing and then on that side of the building? I don't know if that's the east-west side or what, but I think it's the east side.
Can I ask which plan you're looking at? In the
No, I'm
lower
looking
right
at-
corner, there's a,
This one here. And what's it? I just can't, I don't have your legend to know what H means or A. It's about 67 feet there, and then it looks like it dumps over into a water catch basin there on the extreme, maybe east side of the lot.
yeah, so that's the gravel surface.
Oh, that's a gravel?
That's
Okay,
that's a note calling out the
okay.
the
Okay.
gravel
I didn't know if that's
parking
grass
lot
or
area
gravel
there.
there. Yeah, okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions of the applicant? All right, hearing none. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Public comment. Do we have any signed up to speak? Michelle, for comment online, in person? All right, having no one interested for public comment, we'll go ahead and close our public comment section. Discussion among the board.
This is Fred Wingert. I enthusiastically support this. It's nice when we have applicants come that aren't, going to be outside disturbing their neighbors and the residents. I think it's an awesome use of the property and glad someone found the property. It's going to use it for the benefit of the community and not disturb the Stillwell community.
This is Ken. I think that we had previously approved this back in 2022 and it had outdoor storage. I think that's a benefit that we won't be having the outdoor storage, that everything will be done inside. It does bring to point a comment that Charlotte made at the county commissioners here's another sports facility right down from the soccer field. And no one's doing any road improvements and it's going to end up on the taxpayers to fix the roads because we're not having these projects, not that this one deserves that, but we're not having projects help fund and do what's necessary for turning lanes and road usage. And I think we're going to get to a point where that's going to be a problem for the community of Stillwell, and it's not being addressed by the county commissioners in review of these projects. But I'm supportive of this project.
Rod Richardson, I also support this. I mean, there's always problems associated with growth. Clearly, growth is coming this direction, and it's going to be coming with a vengeance, I suspect. But that really just underscores how important it is to decide, what the comprehensive plan for this area is, and when exceptions to that plan will be allowed, to avoid giving the greater weight of these decisions to the applicant rather than the people that are living there and paying taxes. This application to me meets all the requirements. Staff supports it. I don't hear any objections really from the board here. The lighting looks good, so I'm in favor of recommending approval of this. And would so move, Mr. Chair.
All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, Rod, you want to go? I'm sorry, go ahead, Dan.
I'd just like to say that I agree with what Fred said. It's also pleasant to see a Stillwell resident putting a business here in Stillwell as well. So.
Fred Wigger, Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the final development plan for teaching and instructional use of 20059
That's all right.
Metcalf Avenue with the stipulation and the reasons outlined for the staff report.
Second, Rod Richardson.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hearing no opposed, motion unanimously passed. Expect this will be going May 30th as well.
This will go before the Board of County Commissioners at their May 30th regular meeting.
All right, thank you. Our final application for review this evening is application number E23364FP AU. It is the final plat for 20305 Metcalf Avenue. Michelle?
Good evening, Michelle Leiniger, County Planning Staff. This application is for a final plat of the Metcalf Soccer plat. This is outlined in blue. It is located just north of 206th Street and Metcalf Avenue. This is the plat for the property, the final plat. The preliminary plat was approved March of this year, and that included 4 lots and 1 tract for stormwater. The final plat for this phase includes 3 lots in the tract for stormwater. Just for reference, a final plat can be for any portion or all of the approved preliminary plat. The plat defines the property boundaries, easements, rights of way for the site, and the existing zoning regulates the uses. This plat is consistent with the approved preliminary plat. Staff does recommend approval of 3-lot industrial subdivision to be known as Metcalf Soccer Complex, subject to stipulations and reasons outlined in the staff report. And here's a suggested motion.
Thank you. Any questions by the board or the staff? Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate that. Hearing none, is the applicant present would like to make any comments? All right, applicant's present, no additional comments. Public comment? No, hearing no one's here for public comment or present, we will then go ahead and close our public comments and discussion among the zoning board.
Kelly Rass, since this application, the zoning board put a lot of work into trying to find happy mediums and something that would work with giving consideration to the residents and the community. And the BOCC, the majority of the BOCC did not want to take any of our recommendations. I will be abstaining from voting on this and let the BOCC own this.
This is Ken Klingensmith. You know, we're an advisory board to the Board of County Commissioners, and clearly our advice on this project is not of any interest. They've decided there's got to be more at play than meets the eye here. And because of that, in the project, in the direction they've taken this, I will also be abstaining and not rendering a vote. Any other comments or discussion?
This is Dan Foyle. I will be abstaining for the same reasons, Ken. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Rod Richardson. I think at least from my perspective, the applicant is at the point where we're at the final development plan stage. I think Phelps Engineering and the applicant have submitted a plan which appears to me to meet the technical requirements necessary under the codes based on the approval of the Board of County Commissioners. So for the record, I don't personally see that Phelps Engineering has run askance or failed to meet the requirements for this, for the final development plan approval. However, I do think under the circumstances, this board is trying to send as best as it can, a message to the BOCC that we think there's something wrong in the way these have been analyzed. Even if the BOCC were to end up approving this, which they obviously did, it would have been far better had the staff and the BOCC come to grips with the concern of this board and a number of the most all of the residential residents about the concern of the negative impacts of this and whether they'd been reasonably mitigated or not. I think, to me, and I'm going to abstain as well, not because I believe there's anything wrong with the technical application here for this approval. I'm going to abstain because I think the county commissioners need to at least understand that if you are going to approve something that is clearly contrary to what this board believes it should do and what this board's decision based on most of us, or not all of us, but most of us live in the community, and trying to look at the Stillwell Community Plan, which was expressly adopted. In other words, not every community within the unincorporated part of the county has a separate community plan. The Stillwell Plan, which is an offshoot of the Blue Valley Plan, very clearly was there and has been recognized by the BOCC and prior BOCCs as a legitimate plan. And I think in this case, going forward for these applications which come forward in Stillwell, it's very concerning to see what happened here when this particular application was not only approved, but approved without really any visible consideration anyway of the concerns expressed by those of us, particularly on the lighting. And I think we did a fairly good job, quite frankly, of proposing to staff, the applicant, and the BOCC a workaround, which it's unfortunate was not even apparently considered. But the fact of the matter is, it was approved. I think the Phelps Engineering has done its usual good job in making the ticking all the boxes on this. But I'm going to abstain on the voting, Mr. Chairman, really to try to express a very deep concern we have about how these matters are dealt with at the BOCC, which really are pretty much devoid of any real discussion of the concerns we've had here. And I'm also going to, again, underscore how important I think it is going forward, if there is a divergence from the comprehensive plan, the Stillwell plan, that the staff, favor us by calling that out. And if they agree that it's a direct violation, say so. If they believe there's a good workaround in it, explain why we should consider that to be a compelling reason for going around it. In this particular case, I don't think we ever got to that with these 70-foot light standards and some of the other recommendations we made that would have made this much more palatable for the area. At the bottom of the discussion is the fact that once this is approved, it is actually going to make it much more problematic for us and the BOCC to enforce, the lighting standards that were intended to be enforced here once this is approved. You can argue around it, but it's going to be if I can use the word, glaring problem in Stillwell. So that's my view.
Chair,
you.
can I
Go ahead,
Can I
Michelle.
jump in? This is Michelle Eigner, County Planning Staff. I just want to clarify that this is a final plat. It is not a final development
Right.
plan. It meets all the requirements for the zoning district and the minimum infrastructure requirements. This does not have anything to do with the requirements of the conditional use permit that is separate from this. This separates the land into parcels, and any use within the industrial zoning district can come through and do a preliminary development plan and final development plan on this property. The plat is the separation of the property. The development plan and the CUP are specifically for the use. They don't have to have one for another. So that CUP did not have to have the property platted.
Michelle,
So I just want to clarify that this is not a final
Michelle,
development plan.
and
It is
thank
a
you.
plat.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. Thank you for that clarification. I think from my perspective, this is Ken Klingensmith. I think the report's accurate. I agree with Rod that all the technical elements are here. In my mind, the county commissioners, we're an advisory board. They're not interested in our advice on this project. They've taken this on themselves. In fact, they've even approved a 5-year review 5 years from now that bypasses the zoning board. That's going to go straight to public opinion at the zoning board or at the Board of County Commissioners. Let them review this application. That's my opinion.
Ken Sanderson. I'll be brief. I echo some of the same comments. I think Phelps just done a great job in complying with the spirit of the regs and made the best. This case was remanded back to us, then we sent it back up pretty much with a workaround and pretty much a unanimous consent amongst this board. I did attend that meeting online with the Board of County Commissioners, was sorely disappointed in the way it was conducted and the fact that there was no consideration for the work that we'd put forward. I don't even really recall much of it even being mentioned. So with that, with those comments, I would abstain as well.
And I would acknowledge that I understand, I misspoke as to when I said what this was. I fully understand what you just said. And, but I think what you're hearing here is essentially a position being taken by this board that we are concerned. It's an expression of concern. And I think it's a legitimate one that needs to be considered by all of BOCC and how these issues are developed, or tell us point blank that, the Stillwell Community Plan, which has been in place since 2013, I think, is now considered merely a suggestion and not something that we should pay too much attention to. I think it's a good plan, and I think there can be reasons to get around it if there are very compelling reasons to do so. I don't think the popular nature of a soccer complex is a sufficient reason to get around it, because that's basically saying that the residents of Stillwell depend on this community plan really need to take a back seat to the interests of this, this profit-making organization and other people that enjoy soccer in the community because they want to come and have their kids play soccer. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I think somebody's got to stand up for the landowners and the land users around there who have to live with this long after the users of this complex have gone home and are fast asleep. And I think that's part of what we have to do. I don't think the Board of County Commissioners have addressed that. And I hope this vote at least pokes at them that they need to do that, or they should anyway. So I'll vote to abstain as well for that reason.
Thank you, Rod.
Mr. Chairman, Fred Wingert, they'll take a little different approach tonight. I think there's an opportunity, Judd, Jay, there's an old saying, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Jay, you can meet with the developer. You have access to the Cogent Enterprises, the owner of this development. You have access to their lawyer. You can meet with them. Judd, you could be there. There's a thing called Code of the West. There's 10 points in the Code of the West. One of them is be tough but fair. Cogent Enterprises, the Vors, Posinelli won. They won everything. They did a clean sweep. They beat the board. They beat the city. They beat the neighbors. They beat everybody on this board. They beat us all, right? So they went home the victors. They got everything. They got 10 o'clock. They got 70 feet lights. They got it all. They get it all. They got profit. They got everything. They could be the bigger person in this and come back and say, okay, we'll agree to 8 o'clock. We could let the kids go to bed at 8 o'clock that live next door to this. Yeah, they don't own wineries and they don't vacation in Maui and all that stuff, right? We could compromise a little bit. We could lower the lights down. Maybe we still have lights, but maybe we could do it at 40 feet. And that could be the right thing. Tough but fair. And, there's still maybe the right thing could happen here. And we could still make money. We're still going to have soccer, right? Maybe everybody could go home with a little bit of something in this. So I'm going to actually vote for it. I voted against it the whole way. I didn't even want to vote for some of the stuff that other people on the board, but I'm going to vote for this tonight with the idea that maybe Judd and Jay and my favorite lawyer over at Posinelli could all get together and maybe do the right thing for, it's not going to really impact me in my life. I'm going to be okay. But maybe for, just because you can doesn't mean you should, and the Code of the West and be tough but fair, maybe a compromise could still be reached. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Jay, I think you'd want to make a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the comments. And I I want to make sure I've got my tally correct here in terms of the, I have 5 abstentions, Klingensmith, Rast, Foil, Richardson, and Sanderson, all abstaining. And then I have Fred Wingert is voting in favor. That's correct?
I don't think we've actually voted yet.
Haven't voted.
Haven't voted, but
your
okay,
tally
they stated their intention. Yeah,
discussion
sorry.
points.
Okay. Their intention. So with that, I guess I'm gonna look to Ryan or Peg. My understanding in accordance with chapter 4, section 2, C, section 2 is it would be a failure to recommend.
Yes, anything less than a full majority, one way or the other, would be a failure to recommend. But I do think we do need the motion and then an actual, vote or lack thereof, if you will.
Okay.
Just Kelly Ross, I was going to say one thing. I do believe, and staff can correct me, but the Stillwell plan, believe it or not, is the most updated plan. It's more updated than the the subdivisions and zoning board, and it's more updated than the comprehensive plan. Is that correct? I know every year we kind of do it's updated, but
Mr. Rast,
even though the things are not.
to your point, the Stillwell plan was adopted in 2013.
Uh-huh.
That entire document, how the subdivision regulations, yes, I think go back to, I want to say 2008 for parts of it, but there's quite a few updates in the document that have been completed over the years. We did a major update to it in 2020, major update in 2019. So, what you're saying is true in terms of the entirety for the document as a whole. Is fairly, in 2013, if you look at the other parts of the subdivision regulations, however, we've done periodic updates over the years.
Okay.
Subdivision regulations too.
Thank you for the
Thank
clarification.
you. If we have a failure to recommend, Jay, that still moves forward to the Board of County Commissioners as such?
Yes, that is correct, Mr. Chairman. It would still, a failure to recommend, if a vote is taken, would still go to the Board of County Commissioners.
Okay, thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman, question to Jay. When this goes up as a failure to recommend, is it on the consent docket, or does it go actually presented?
Sean Penley, County Plan Staff. This application will go on their regular action agenda, just like all planning applications, because it does have opportunity for public comment.
And just as an additional clarification, that failure to recommend would be stipulated in the briefing sheet as well. There would be a description of all of that as well.
This question goes to council, I believe. I'll admit, I've been on this board and others for decades, and this is the first time in my experience that I've ever sat in a vote such as this. So could you run that back through me? Because my question that was rolling around in my mind was, all right, what happens if you have one positive vote and the rest are abstentions? Is that my understanding is what you're saying is that goes up under the regulations that we have as a failure to recommend. Is that correct?
Oh,
Yes, that's correct.
No, I'm sorry. So if you go up for a motion and we have 5, is there 5 or on the, okay, on Zoom. Oh, I'm sorry. So it would be 6 that are recusing. So you do not have a quorum to move forward because you have recused. So even though you're voting, you want to vote positive to send a message of the Coda West, that wouldn't go forward because there's only one person able to vote in this matter, and we don't have a quorum to vote on the issue. So it's as if it came before the board. So we have to take your vote where you would say, I recuse, recuse, recuse. I'm not sure those are appropriate recusals, but I'm not getting into that. You just put it on the record.
Sorry, can I just, isn't there a difference between recusal and abstain, or it's considered
Well,
the
you're
exact
getting
same?
into the Roberts Rules of Order, which is a different between conflict or whether you're just saying, I don't want to vote.
Yeah, I thought abstain was an actual vote.
Right, abstain. So recusal is saying that you're not going to vote or be part of the number for one reason or
Okay,
another.
so you're saying they're exact same.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at this particular point, there's not a quorum, so it comes before the board. We can't go forward because you're our board appointees. So therefore, it goes up to the commission as if it was no action. And then they can move forward because you didn't move forward and you're not making a stance. And I have never in my 35 years of practicing law and representing government have ever seen this. So I can tell you that, and I come from the code of West in Wyoming, and I've never seen it. I have seen what you are saying, where commissions do not take the recommendations of planning boards. I understand what you're feeling and how you feel because that occurs, but I have never seen it and where you have done this.
Never had a
And-
Commissioner court like we have.
Yeah, I think that kind of, Kelly Ross, that goes both ways. And it's not, we're not talking just feelings. I mean, yes, that is part of it. It's about respect and how it, and you've said it too, how all staff, zoning boards, planning commissioners, VOCC need to work together because they should feed off of each other and take that stuff. But Rod gave hard, cold facts that the VOCC failed in their job, which is now going to reflect down to us for further applications. And it's basically making the Stillwell community plan null and void on certain issues. So this isn't just feelings. There has been some hard facts laid out at this board that we are saying the VOCC failed to do their job to lay down the facts, or even, and then we've asked nicely that the staff maybe moving forward can stipulate why they're going, to an extreme and going against what's considered the norm. I think that's fair. This board has been very fair. We did not deny the soccer complex. We tried to come up with a happy medium. And the BOCC chose to be basically rude in a lot of their comments and not address true factual issues that were put in front of them by this board. So I take a little offense regarding just feelings. Yes, our feelings are hurt, but there
Choice
has
of my
been
words.
plenty of facts that have been laid out tonight with failures. And I think it's being brought up so we can do better. Everybody needs to do better. We all interconnect somehow, and we must do better for our residents. If not, what's this whole point? I don't need to volunteer my time. So there are some hardcore facts.
Chair, if I may respond on one point, I'm not as confident as we can't move forward with an update of your plan and how we've fitted into the regulations. I'm not of the same mindset that now we can't make restrictions moving forward. I think that this is a good recommendation to go back to the Planning Commission in order to make those stronger and tie up some loopholes that are in the Stillwell plan in order that those are put in there. So I do feel there is moving forward the ability to still put restrictions on properties moving forward. So I don't necessarily share your same sentiment that now you've set the line, but I hear what you're saying, and I apologize. I didn't mean to say feelings because I would be upset if someone said feelings to me. So I meant, I understand what you're saying. I apologize.
Mr. Chairman, I'm glad, Counselor, that you said what you did, because I was thinking this would be my 50th year doing zoning and land use, but I've never seen this come up in anything I've ever done. So that's the reason I asked the question, because I simply don't know how that works. So I don't even, most things you could kind of hazard a guess on, et cetera. So that's why I asked the question. And I'm sure you guys can sort that out. That's in your bailiwick. I also agree with you that this presents an opportunity that I think you correctly defined and Jay correctly defined to look at this. We've expressed our concern. That's all we can do. I mean, we serve the same community everybody else does. The difference is that the BOCC is serving the entirety of the county, and we're really serving a smaller subset of that, and then a smaller subset of the Stillwell community plan. And because Stillwell has this plan and nobody else really does as part of the Blue Valley, it's there for a reason. And we need to make sure we understand what that reason is, because obviously the people that live in the Stillwell plan have reason to feel that it matters. So I think once the Planning Commission looks at this, the BOCC hears these comments, You know, they run the show, we don't, but I think we'll be most interested to hear where this might go, because we do need some feedback on this. Because there's going to be an applicant coming here with some extraordinary lighting issues, and we're going to be looking at this plan, and we're going to be thinking about this and thinking we may turn them down because of that, and then it goes up, and who knows what happens then. So we need some consistency, whatever that may be. We need some consistency, particularly on lighting and noise, two most disruptive things to any residential community. And this one has both of those attached to it. So that's my comment.
Ms. Keller asked,
He was gonna-
you are, because you're, but go ahead. Make a motion.
Make a motion on, I'm sorry.
We're gonna approve it.
Might have a.
You thought? Dan, is there any comment from you? Additional comments while we,
I recommend approval of the application E23324FP, a final plat for 3-plot industrial subdivision and known as Metcalf Soccer Complex for the reasons recommended by staff.
do we have a second? Hearing no second.
So I think, Mr. Chairman, with no second here, this would be a failure to recommend. As Jay noted, this application would be still move forward as scheduled. This application would be scheduled for final action by the Board of County Commissioners on May 30th at 9:30 a.m. County Administration Building, 111 South Cherry Street, Olathe.
All right, thank you. Other business, Sean? Did you want to?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only other item to note here, I wanted to mention, at request of Mr. Richardson, we prepared a map. We actually had our Ames department prepare a zoning board map just showing the boundaries of the east and west zoning boards for your reference. Hopefully that will help you identify, basically it's anything in the unincorporated area. East of Clare Road, that is the east zoning board's jurisdiction. West of Clare Road is the west zoning board's jurisdiction. These maps, not exactly the way this is presented because we had this modified to allow for more reference, easier to read. But we do have these maps on our county Ames map site. Anybody can pull up and identify a specific property and actually select a layer for zoning board map. So we just wanted to let you know about that. If you do request a copy of this in a PDF version, we can certainly send that to you, but we're presenting this both for the east and west zoning boards for your reference. So happy to answer any questions on that.
I could, if you look at 159th, cross over to Blackman, Ridgeview area, what's the thought or purpose of why there's these like two little dots of zoning that seems wrapped around a city environment?
I wish I had a copy of that map before me, but I do not. So I may have to look at that and we could certainly talk offline and check that.
Kind of curious because there's just
Some of it may
little
be
islands out there.
probably what they are. They're probably areas that may have been annexed. We do have a few island annexations out there that are within the city's jurisdiction and not within the county's unincorporated.
Okay, thank you. Any other business before the board?
On this, Keller, I just wanted to share one comment. As we're trying to talk and do better all together. I had gone to all the Overland Park from the Planning Commission to City Council regarding the 179th and Metcalf project that's part of Overland Park. And one of the things that struck me, because we are talking about infrastructure, we're starting to see a lot of buildup on Metcalf. And as Ken said, it's really important for staff to start taking a more holistic, full, 180-degree view of that. But because this was what I felt very disturbing at the city council meeting with that project was their traffic study actually showed there would be a 66% increase of wrecks on the southbound ramp of 69 Highway and 179th Street. And the traffic study was not very favorable. And the planning actually said that the infrastructure was not there for this project. But yet somehow it got passed, and it was passed kind of on the notion of, well, if we pass it, then maybe we can get the infrastructure. In my opinion, as a parent and as a citizen, that is unbelievably concerning. So of course, I hope that's not how we operate, but that's what's going on. I feel like, yes, that's a little niche of Overland Park, but that is going to affect Stillwell and unincorporated Johnson County like crazy of what just got approved there. And literally it was approved with the verbal acknowledgement and understanding that car instances would go up by 66%, and the infrastructure was not there to tolerate what was passed. So if you're not privy to that, keep that in mind with the rest of the stuff that's going to be approved for Metcalf and everything else down the road. Public Works. Were you there? Or?
No, I wasn't at attendance at that meeting. Usually with, I guess, boundary projects, we do try to coordinate with
Oh, gotcha.
cities. I believe, I have not been involved on that project. Other staff may have, so I'm not able to speak on that at this time.
You state your name for the record.
Sorry, this is Jacob Askian, Public Works.
Any other comments before we adjourn? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
One comment to Public Works, that you guys, since we had all of the accidents and rollovers, everything on 199th Street, and you then went out and did the rumble strips, restriped it, put the additional gravel shoulders down. We had like 27 rollovers in a period of 2 or 3 years there. To my knowledge, we've had 0 since that occurred. So as one who lives along the road there and they rolled over on my property twice, I'm very grateful for that. I think you guys did a nice job with that until 199th can be fully brought to the standard it should have been 22, 23 years ago. But for right now, it's working so far.
Yeah, again, Jacob Askian, Public Works. I am fairly new to this position, but I will pass that along to my coworkers who did work on that project. Thank you.
Kelly Ross, I make a motion to adjourn on that good note.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing no opposed, we'll adjourn.